Hey guys, today we're talking about the R5 Mark II. We just shot an entire wedding on it and give you the good, the bad, what before we did not like about Canon. That was really hard compared to like Sony and these other brands. Let's get into it. Okay, so when we're shooting with R6s, R6 Mark IIs, R5s, R6s, we know that the R5 would overheat. Everybody knows that. Then the R6 would overheat as well all the time. Actually, the R6 Mark II does not overheat in the settings that we shoot in. So 30 frames a second, 4K, we have no issue with those cameras. It's actually a great camera to shoot with that we rely on a lot. We also have the R5C that does not overheat as well, obviously because there's fans inside of it. But there's a couple things that just hindered us, and I was always jealous with people that had Sonys. Is, you know, I would shoot an event and there's many low light corporate situations and weddings where there's so much grain in the Canons, and Sony just looks like butter. There's just not a lot of grain, and it looks beautiful. And I've really been like fiending for a camera from Canon that doesn't have that grain. And when you push the colors, because we shoot in C-Log, pushing those the dynamic range and into areas, it just gets really grainy, and it was really hard. And even all our color artists that we have really just hated when we shot with Canon, to be honest. Another thing more on the R5C, when we shot in RAW, the file sizes were just astronomical. I mean, way more than a Red Komodo, Sony, all of that. Just, it was ridiculous. And the dynamic range. When we're shooting weddings and the bride's always by a window, or corporate interviews, that this dynamic range was awful. I mean, it was just blown out in the background, did not look good. Obviously, you can use a light to help brighten the subject, which makes it look like you have more dynamic range. But to be honest, it really was not there compared to the Sony FX3 and other cameras like that. So as you can see, I'm going to show some footage. Let's go into the dynamic range with the dress. We did have one light that was off to the side to kind of brighten the room because the room was really dark. So that did help with the dress. But it's really beautiful. We shot in RAW light. So so when you go into RAW, 30 frames a second, RAW light, it really, on a 612 card, got me about 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is comparable to Blackmagic and Red for B-RAW and Red's Kodak. So that was not a big deal. And it was super, super clear. I mean, we could zoom into eyelashes. I was super impressed. We did use the downscaling, so shooting in fine mode, which is going from 8K downsampling to 4K. That caused some major heat issues, to be honest. So far the camera, the R5, I almost said R5C2, the R5 Mark II, not grainy at all. Literally what I've been wanting from Canon for so long, because I now don't want to buy a Sony. It's probably the realest thing you'll ever hear. I don't want to buy a Sony because this really fixes that problem. There's like no grain. It's pretty damn good. We're shooting in some really, really, really low light situations, and there is no grain. So I don't know if that's because the stacked sensor. I think it is, but man, it's impressive. I finally don't want to buy an FX3. I will stay with you, Canon. Yet the price tag is pretty significantly higher. We have to buy new batteries, and also the battery life. We can go into that. The battery lasts forever. As people know, the R5C, you can put these batteries into, and it doubles the battery life. That's going to make these batteries sell like crazy. I already know, because that's the biggest flaw with the R5C. But I went through 2 batteries the entire day. They were the special batteries, which like let me shoot RAW. If you don't put those batteries in, you cannot shoot RAW. You can't shoot RAW light. It opens up those settings. So that was pretty good. The battery life was great. Eye tracking, I mean, tracking was phenomenal. It's super sticky, right on. You dial in those settings. I mean, honestly, I didn't even change the settings from when I got this camera, and it's beautiful. It always tracks the subject. You touch it and knows. You can set face priority to the bride and groom, and it's sticky. It goes right to their face. No complaints. Definitely an improvement there as well. But again, it's so sharp. I could literally zoom in when I was super far, which I'll show you, and zoom into an eyelash. And you can see it in detail. No grain. Looked great. It was insanely impressive. So I did like that as well. So bottom line, and let's go into a bad thing. It got hot. I don't know if it's a new sensor or whatnot, but it overheated quick. I think we got 20 minutes into speeches. Again, I was shooting in fine mode, 4K, 30 frames a second, and we had to shut it down. It did cool down very fast. It cooled down within 2 minutes. I was able to turn it back on. I put it down to 2K to basically just let it run to get the rest of the speeches. I had backup cameras, obviously, but it gets hot, and it gets hot quick. That's definitely going to be a downside. I don't know if I can sell my R5C because of this, because I do need it for corporate events that run all day long. I don't know if this camera would actually keep up with that. But ending on a good note, don't want a Sony anymore. The grain is fantastic. The noise levels are super low. It's a beautiful image. C-Log 2 is such a great addition, as everybody knows. There's more dynamic range, which is awesome, which is proven based off when we shot, and the battery life. I mean, Canon's been needing to do this for a really long time, is upgrade their batteries, and they did it. And again, with the R5C, they do work, so I think these are going to sell like crazy. They're already back ordered, and this is going to be my new go-to camera. Definitely not going to return this. Super easy to color correct, and props to my wife for color correcting. I'm super colorblind, so she did a great job. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll have more reviews coming soon.